Welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. And I have to ask, did Nancy Pelosi save the world with her visit to Taiwan? This visit has been so interesting because it has exposed political cracks among typical bedfellows. There were a lot of Democrats, a lot of people on the left who were very much opposed to her visiting Taiwan. And then there's the question of who leaked the trip in the first place. There were Republicans who were celebrating this journey as though finally someone from the federal government was ready to stand up to China with this symbolic visit to a democratic nation who, definitely is much more interested in self-rule than China is with its independence. So joining me today is Greg Palkot. He is our London-based senior foreign affairs correspondent for the Fox News Channel. Greg, welcome to Kennedy Saves the World.
Hi, Kennedy.
So what did Nancy Pelosi accomplish with her trip to Taiwan?
Well, certainly, Kennedy, it was a show of political force. She stood up for the democracy that Taiwan is. She stood up for the freedoms that are there, and certainly in contrast to what is happening about 100 miles across the Strait of Taiwan over in mainland China, where it's anything but freedom and democracy. She also walked into kind of a little bit of a murky political minefield. U.S., for your listeners, adheres to what is called a one China policy. That means there is one government in Beijing and it runs everything. We adopted that so we could increase relations with China, get China into the UN Security Council, et cetera, et cetera. But we've also had a lot of Taiwan resolutions because we like what's happening in Taiwan. We want to improve its democracy and to some degree its independent status. But we've never recognized it now as a nation after that one China policy. So it's a bit here and a bit there, and frankly, Nancy went there in the past couple of days. Kennedy.
So was it more about Taiwan or was it more to show China? Because, the thing that a lot of people didn't realize about Nancy Pelosi is she has a long personal history of standing up to China. There are a lot of people in both parties who have placated and appeased China in various ways. And, she is a very high-ranking official. She's third in line for the presidency if, God forbid, something happens to President Biden or Vice President Kamala Harris. It is more meaningful if she goes herself than just a congressional delegation. But she has taken it upon herself to protest China in various ways at various times, including in China. Talking about political prisoners over there, unfurling a banner, admonishing China and championing freedom. So what are the ramifications for U.S.-China relations in the short term and in the long term based on her visit from your analysis?
Well, I think you nailed it, Kennedy. For decades, Nancy Pelosi has been stridently against how things are run in Beijing, against the current Chinese government and frankly, past Chinese governments. So at the age of 82, where frankly, she might not even be speaker next year, she might have seen this trip, and it's one stop of a 5-stop Asian trip. She might have seen this stop in Taiwan as a real capstone of her career and a real chance to stand up for the people of Taiwan. What we've seen is a difficult dance on the White House side. Nancy's there. Nancy goes. The White House is stuck with trying to deal with this China policy and China relationship. I don't think President Biden is any real big fan of President Xi, but he's got to live with him too. So you've been hearing a lot of squishy things coming out of a lot of spokespersons' mouths in the past couple days in the Biden administration. But frankly, it comes down to the reality of how you deal with this 1.3 million population behemoth, the big red elephant in the room, if you want, Kennedy.
All right, we got more of this interview after this. it's interesting because it did expose this rift between the president and the speaker. And, they're probably in lockstep on most issues. But as we're watching this unfold and, the president was vocal about saying, the Pentagon doesn't really want her to go. There could be national security implications. This may not be the best idea. And then the speaker came out and she said, I haven't heard anything about that. The president hasn't called me. And, obviously he's got her number and he could talk to her directly. But it was interesting because watching all of this will she, won't she, I was like, if anyone has watched Nancy Pelosi operate over the last 30 years, they know she's not going to back down from a challenge. That's why she is speaker. That's why she has been reelected speaker. People in her caucus fear her. And part of it is, to her political opponents, she's annoyingly uncompromising. But, and I've always said this, like Republicans wish they had someone like her. And I wish there were more people in government and in culture, in media, even in sports, who would stand up to China. So it was not wholly unsurprising that when the trip leaked, she still went.
Yeah, Kennedy, it was a bold, strong visit. It only lasted 17 hours, but she met the president of Taiwan. She met other officials there, and she enunciated what a lot of people feel, frankly, on both sides of the island. That is a great admiration for the folks in Taiwan and what they're trying to do. Let me just get back, though. I mean, President Biden probably didn't love the idea of her going. He said that the Pentagon didn't love the idea of it's going. She's gone now. She's on to Seoul, then Tokyo, and then home. And now the Pentagon is looking at a really, really dangerous situation. Starting tomorrow, according to Chinese state media and authorities, Beijing is launching probably the most aggressive military exercises around Taiwan it has ever done. It has identified 6 different zones encircling Taiwan. That'll be the target of long-range missiles, artillery fire, short-range missiles, planes, ships, etc. To me, Kennedy, looking at the plans for this exercise, which is supposed to last 4 days, it looks nothing short of close to a declaration of war without stepping over that line. In fact, Taiwan today is saying their sovereignty could be breached. Their shipping and their aviation certainly will be disrupted. What the Pentagon, I'm sure, is worrying about is that there is a real chance for some kind of a clash or some kind of a mistake to happen. And that's what they're watching while the 17-hour trip is over, Kennedy.
Yes, we talk a lot about trade and intellectual property theft, but man, straddling an invasion and a hot war with China, it would require resources and life that I don't think the United States is willing to or should spend. But, we'll see how all of this plays out. Just because someone engages in an act of disruption, it doesn't have to equal war. And hopefully China is more rational than that. They don't want a hot war with the United States. The United States doesn't want a hot war with a nuclear power like China. It's like we have our hands full with everything that's going on in Ukraine and, every other part of the world where we are tangentially involved militarily. So hopefully calmer heads will prevail. I'm glad she went. Obviously, we don't want this entire situation to slide off the cliff. And I'm glad that you are in London keeping an eye on the rest of the world while we sit here and sleep and talk about things like great dogs.
We'll see how it goes, Kennedy. Thank you very much.
All right, Greg Palkot, thanks so much for being a part of the podcast. This has been Kennedy Saves the World. I'm Kennedy. For more podcasts from my friends at Fox, you can go to foxnewspodcast.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.